All right. We have a busy morning ahead of us, and we have the Burning Platform this morning, which, of course, is here every Thursday. It's our chance to get into some of the big stories that affect all of our lives, and we have to join us this morning, I'm very pleased to say, none other than Rob Hutchinson. You know what, Rob? It's been a long time since we've had you on the show. It's nice to see you again. How are you? What's happening?
A whole lot is happening, Gareth. I don't even know where to start, but it has been too long, and I think we'll definitely catch up during the show.
Well, let me just remind everybody who's wondering, you're a creative strategist, founding director of Outer, also founder of the proudly E-Tag Free, which, I mean, I still don't know how anyone ever got an E-Tag, because I never did. I was never convinced by that nonsense. But well done to you for that, because I think that was the first real expression of, like, public disagreement with just being told what to do. And we need to see a lot more of that.
It was, yeah.
I love it. Also Deputy General Secretary of COPE for a while, founder of the public participation platform, Dear South Africa, which we have to talk about, Pumi, because our producer, Dory, almost got caught out because there is a fake Dear South Africa scammer call center that is operating. But Dear South Africa is still running and you're still there.
Yes, the platform's still running, dearsouthafrica.co.za. It still does exactly what it has done since 2018, provide a facility for the public to have their say on various matters that the government does put out. And we know they put out quite a few changes and amendments and so on. And it just expresses the voice of the public directly through to government. It has been running. I'm still running it. I founded it. It's still hugely popular. There was a split in the organization.
Everywhere you go, there's a split. COPE, Dear South Africa, Outer. Maybe you're the ingredient here that causes the split.
You are the common denominator.
Yeah.
It could be. Maybe I'm just too good and I just...
Okay. They take one look at Rob and they're like, no, we got to get out of here.
Yeah, well, we've got to get him out.
So what happened in the split at Dear South Africa?
Yeah, so it was a hostile takeover. There's no doubt about that. And one of the directors, one of the suppliers, which was a call center, pushed a lady by the name of Chloe onto the board, and she used to help out quite a bit. But eventually, she became a board member, and then as soon as she became a proper board member, they conspired to push me out. And as soon as they pushed me out, she appointed her husband and his business partner who owned the call center.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And then they started their own website, which is a separate thing. They started that in February of this year. And
what are they doing? Just taking people's money?
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
So,
Jesus.
Very important. How then do people know which is the true Dear South Africa and which is not?
Very simple. The one that actually sends comments to Parliament. And that's dearsouthafrica.co.za.
Dearsa.co.za.
Yeah, dearsouthafrica.co.za.
And the other one is fake.
The other one, well, as far as I can know, we've done extensive research on it. I've checked with Parliament. They don't receive any comments from that website.
But they call themselves Dear South Africa. Did you make sure you got the right one, everybody, if you want to support this?
And because this is how Dory almost got caught out, because they were asking for donations, which... Yeah. An interesting conversation that's currently going on. How do you fund your NGO?
Well, exactly. Well, mine at the moment is not an NGO. Mm-hmm. It is a for-profit operation that sells mostly advertising space. So if people want to donate to it, there is also a facility where they can donate. But I would never phone people and sign them up to debit orders and so on. It just leaves a bad taste in my mouth. I don't like the whole stigma around debit orders and forcing people to sign up to a monthly contribution. It doesn't work with me. And it's also not a very good business model, because you tend to shift away from your non-profit objective and focus more on making money sustainably, which then eventually just gets used to pay salaries and so on, where instead of going towards the cause or taking government to court on certain legislation or so on, and it just becomes a for-profit business instead of serving the public. So I've kept it as a non-profit. It functions like that wholly. It always will be. As I said, if people want to contribute, they can. But otherwise, I sell advertising space on it through a for-profit company.
All right, well, let's get into some of the things.
No, but first, because Bakabantu walked in here very triumphantly
Yes.
to say, you called it wrong when you were last together, the three of you, about Ace Makashude.
No, Gareth was skeptical. I will defend the man. The man was skeptical. He said he will take Mr. Hutchinson's caveats, because he had a lot of caveats, but Sispumi was adamant, no. Ace Makashude will never be let out to pasture. They will never let him out.
I said he will not leave, which he did not. He was thrown out, which is a very big difference. It's a difference. Semantics is turning left when you're supposed to turn
So
right.
what are you saying, Bakabantu? Who was right and who was wrong, since we're playing a game of who knows
I'm
more?
saying they were both wrong. So let's carry on the playing platform, Gareth.
All right.
Hang on.
very good.
I distinctly remember saying the question was, would the ANC split?
Okay, they didn't split.
they didn't split.
An offshoot formed.
Are they going to?
It
are
is
they-
not an
okay, so
offshoot.
if the ANC did split before this election, highly unlikely that they would, but that would be seismic. I mean, that would completely change the playing field.
It would not.
Oh, you don't think so?
Yeah.
However it split, 70-30, 60-40, 50-50, however it did, of course it would. You'd suddenly have way more options on the coalition front.
So
You'd have
we
another
look at numbers.
Have another cope. Oh no, we don't want that. You guys fooled me once. You won't fool me again.
But we look at the numbers, voting numbers all the time at our organization. And one of the biggest, if you want to call it a split, one of the biggest kind of offshoots that have happened in the past 10 years has been the EFF.
Sure.
And what that looks
Probably
like,
the most successful offshoot.
the most successful one. But what that looks like is it looks like the number of people who voted for the ANC before there was the EFF and the number of people who voted for the ANC plus the EFF is the same number. So the 2 million odd people who voted for the EFF came from the ANC. There are no new voters in the system.
Again,
So-
like we discussed with Corne Mulder not so long ago, who is attracting and what is going on with all those people who are registered and are not voting and the ones who are unregistered and are not voting? Do you think you know, Rob?
I don't think anybody knows at this stage. I think most
And
people.
where are they? Do these people even exist? Are they made up? Because they can't be this completely unrecognizable to the political situation in this country. There can't be no one going for them.
Yeah.
And how come we're making so few conversions? I mean, Christ, missionaries did better in the 1800s.
That's very true.
Oh my! Go on.
That's very true. Yeah.
Really?
I think that's
No converts.
no converts whatsoever. I think people have just given up on voting. Maybe they don't trust politicians anymore, and who can blame them? Really, I also would question voting in the next elections. Who do I vote for?
I don't
Who
think
would you
people
vote
have
for?
given up voting. People have not given up voting. If you consider the fact that the median age in our country is 27, those young people have just not been given enough reason to vote for the people that are there.
All right, but we talk about those people every week. My point is, you can take the horse to water, but you can't make it drink. Maybe
No.
these people just aren't even interested. Maybe they're never going to be interested.
It's a philosophical question, honestly. Politics is based on love and hate. So you either vote for something you love or you vote against something you hate. But now people think that the opposite of love is hate, but it's not. The opposite of love is apathy. People don't care. So how do you make people care? That's the question you're asking.
And what do you think these people care about, if they care about anything, so that we can start to get them to care about participating in democracy before that project gets shelved and autocracy comes in the back door?
Well, 30 years has shown us that we have nothing to care about. We don't have nationalism. We don't have patriotism. We don't have all these things. So that is caring, putting caring back into the system. That's what the youth needs to start focusing on, not start focusing on driving Vorpas. But anyway.
I think you're onto something there because you said the youth, and as you said, the median age is 27. What's the median age of our politicians?
Hundreds.
Exactly. It's hundreds. It's close on hundreds, definitely. But that is the difference there. It's the 27-year-olds and below who have no confidence in the old people who are have no clue of what the young people want. So they just don't vote.
Well, they don't have any skin in the game either because they don't participate in the economy necessarily. They don't have something to go and fight for, like their parents or grandparents' generation did, because there was no option for them. I think that it's a combination of these factors, but it is getting frustrating that we keep talking about them and we're not making any progress. No one is. None of these political parties seem to have a strategy for getting to these people, right?
Yeah, none of them
except the EFF. And that's perhaps why the EFF was so out of the box successful, is because they appealed to the younger crowd. Julius Malema was in his early 30s.
But as Pumi said, all those voters came from the ANC. All of them.
He appealed to the ones that were within the ANC. We talk about the EFF quite often, and the fact that they are unable to translate their message into something that the majority of young people care about enough for them to show up to the polls for the EFF.
I mean, they hit their ceiling probably 5-6 years ago, and it hasn't grown up a whole lot since then. There aren't new people joining all the time. They spent all their money now on this thing at FNB a couple of weeks ago. They don't have any money left to register voters. Is that a bad strategy or was it a good strategy? Because it certainly made waves during that week, but what's that going to help you a year before the elections?
Yeah, it's not going to help you at all. And their crowd is getting older as well.
Yeah. You can't be a revolutionary at 70 years old. It's kind of a sad and depressing picture. All right. So, I mean, Julius was famously in the youth league well into his 30s. Where does youth stop? Who knows? All right. So, Bakabantu, I know you've got lots to say about this, but let's just talk about one thing in South Africa that comes up and affects all of us. It comes out of our petrol money. And by petrol money, I mean every time you pay for fuel at the pump, there is a huge percentage of that goes directly to the road accident fund. Now, this is a bizarre concept. I don't know where it came from. Maybe Rob can enlighten us on this. But essentially, uninsured people and vehicles on the road are covered by this state-run insurance scam. All right. And it is a scam because it's run extremely badly. It's always running out of money. It's making... And I know lawyers who are doing settlements for the RAF, for people who've been genuinely injured, young kids who've been hit by cars, people whose whole life has been disrupted by an accident, who have no earning potential. The quanta are small. We're not talking about large settlements, in the millions and millions for people. Somehow the system is rotten to the core. It doesn't work. Why people aren't insured is probably because they don't have money. But the idea that we can have 60% of our vehicles or something on the road that are uninsured, it's ridiculous. So where does all of this get solved, Rob? What do you feel about the road accident fund, and how can you enlighten us on how it may be better managed?
Well, as well as the government can, and that's to propose a total reform of the road accident fund. However, that is exactly what is on the cards. They are proposing a complete reform of it. I think about R2.16 on every litre of petrol goes towards the road accident fund, which equates to about 42 billion a year, which is an incredible amount of money. Yet the road accident fund is in debt to about 300 billion, and that's on cases that it owes lawyers. And of course, the head of the road accident fund himself says that it's due to unscrupulous lawyers abusing the system and effectively raping the system, stealing money out of it.
I wouldn't put it past lawyers, but but I also
Listen, I watch a TV show called I Blew It, and almost every week there's at least they have like 2 stories a week, and it's about people who get large sums of money and then proceed to blow it, and almost every week there is at least one person who has received millions from the road accident fund, and they continue to blow it. So I don't know if
that's one of the things they're actually changing proposing in the new changes or new amendments is no longer will you receive a lump sum of money. They're moving towards a more social benefit system instead of a insurance payout system. So you'll get the health care you need at a government facility for as long as you're alive and as long as you need it. There's no more social benefits. There's no more like feel-good benefits or pain and damages. You can't claim for pain and damages and suffering anymore. Your family, if you are killed in a motor car accident, your family can no longer claim as compensation from the fund. So there's a whole lot of issues around.
But I'm sure, Rob, that the lawyers do abuse the system as well.
There are many lawyers who abuse the system.
Definitely, there's no doubt about it. Because the claims on pain and suffering are currently unlimited, you can put any amount to it, and it's hard to quantify those costs and those pain and suffering. So
Collins Letswalo is in charge there, right? And Collins Letswalo's background, what do we know about Collins Letswalo? I'm curious, because these are the people in charge of these places, and we don't seem to know how someone who is in charge of 40 billion rand every year, we don't know much about him. We talk about, the CEO of a small, medium enterprise who we know the name of these people. We know the people who founded companies in this country, but we don't know this guy. 40 million rand a year he's responsible for.
40 billion.
What do we know about him? 40 billion.
I don't know anything about him, as you say. That's
mysterious.
I know his name, and I know he's a CEO. That's about it. But
do you know anything about him, Pumi?
Well,
is that not a good thing,
that list of cadre deploy.
Yeah, that's one of them.
This is where you would find such names.
Do you know anything about him, Bakabantu?
I have no idea who this guy is, but he's probably on that list that you guys were talking about.
We should be worried about that for starters. How would you like to see it reformed? It's probably not going to happen the way you want it to be reformed, but what would you suggest are the right things to do here?
I think better management, first of all. So let's find out who Collins Letswalo is and see if he's actually doing his job.
But I've just asked you guys. You can't even tell me who Collins Letswalo is.
Exactly.
I had to provide you with the name, for heaven's sake.
And that's the problem, first of all. We don't know. There needs to be better oversight. And maybe it's not government oversight, but private body oversight into the distribution of funds through the Road Accident Fund, how claims are processed, if they are validated, or if lawyers working together with the Road Accident Fund members themselves or people within the Road Accident Fund have a syndicate going, which is more than likely the case. There can be so many fake claims. We've seen lawyers, ambulance chasers. That'll if a taxi has an accident, there's 16 people inside there, hopefully, that will need to claim from the Road Accident Fund. Who's handling those? Are they genuine cases? Are they blown out of proportion? Because that's all abuse of the funds within the system. I don't think there's any oversight currently happening, which has led to 300 billion rand in debt.
Well, we do know that Collins was appointed by Cabinet. Cabinet decides who's the CEO of the Road Accident Fund. It also appears, and I'm going to put a picture of him up here because he's so mysterious and we need to know these things, that he's like 20 years old. I mean, forgive me, but either he has the best skin care regimen in the whole world, or else he's like fresh out of school. Pumi, look at this picture. Let me show you, and you can decide for yourself. All right, this is Collins Letswalo. Are you ready, everybody? Here it is. Pumi, just share this picture with Rob. There we go. Look at that.
The one that I pulled up looks slightly different.
He looks in great shape. So I don't know, whatever he's doing, I want to know.
But I know. So these changes that you speak of, because they have to go through a particular system, because the Road Accident Fund is also enacted in Parliament. That's how it is. Yes. So what can ordinary people like me and Bakabantu do to have our voices heard? Where do we find out about this legislation, and where is it in the process of snaking through Parliament?
Well, normally you'd have to go and read through the Government Gazette and then go to the Department of Transport and find all of these documents. But I have created a campaign on dearsouthafrica.co.za. All the documents are there, the previous act, the current act, the suggested amendments. There's also a summary which has been provided by a consortium of lawyers who are challenging the implementation of the new proposals in the Road Accident Fund. There's quite an extensive summary, and there's also a pricey version which I've distributed amongst everybody, all subscribers. There are some extremely concerning points within it, which do affect us all. If for instance, there's a hit and run, you're injured in a hit and run and the driver drives off, you can't claim from the road accident fund at all, which to me is extremely worrying. There's a lot of hit and runs that do happen.
How do other countries do it?
They don't do it.
They don't.
So why do we have this?
This is true.
Where does it come from? I mean, it sounds like a shit idea from the start. It sounds like a state-owned responsibility co-op where, it's not up to people to insure their own cars or to not walk across a highway because we're almost abdicating personal responsibility at the instance that we create a thing like this.
No, it's called, so I did insurance and risk management. So it's called, I did a course, actually. I didn't even finish it. But it's called...
You're more mysterious than Collins Litswalo. I mean, I don't know you did that.
So it's called a third-party insurance.
Yes.
So it's to cover the people that don't have insurance, like you've pointed out, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in South Africa, we have this unwritten policy where the rich pay for the poor. So if you can afford petrol, you're going to pay for the people who can't, right? So you're paying for the pedestrians. The car people pay for the pedestrians.
And you get nothing in return.
And you get nothing in
Yeah,
return.
right.
It's an unwritten
Yes.
thing
It's a kind of a shadow kind of socialism.
Yeah, it's shadow socialism that we have all signed up in South Africa,
Well, I
right?
haven't.
Well,
That's
you
why
signed up.
That's why I question this. No, I think it's absolutely bullshit. That's why I think it's a bad policy.
Yeah, it's a bad policy. That's why other countries don't do it. So the road accident fund takes from the rich and gives to the poor. That's what it's supposed to be. But now, people like Sir has pointed out, people have abused this thing. And lawyers have ambulance chased this thing because this thing has gone unregulated for so long. So besides the hit and run thing, I support the changes, the amendments. You can't claim for hitting someone in your parking lot because private areas were also excluded from the amendments.
Yes.
They're like, if someone gets hit in your driveway, you can't claim from the road accident fund. That's a private road. That's not a public road. So why are you claiming from a public fund? Yeah, so you see, it's stuff like that where the system does need a lot of regulation. So Collins Lutwalo, I think he's onto something there.
There's one thing that worries me about the road accident fund currently. Medical aids, if you claim from the medical aid because you've been sent to hospital because of a road accident, the medical aid then claims back that expense from the road accident fund.
So they get paid twice.
It's a pyramid scheme.
They get paid
It's
twice. They
100%
get
a
paid by
pyramid
you and they get paid by the
It's
state.
a pyramid scheme.
So that's falling away in the new amendment.
I don't. Sorry, Bakabantu. Your mic is making this buzzing noise, so I keep switching you off by mistake. Go ahead.
So no, but medical aids won't be a problem once we have the NHI, right?
Oh yeah. There's another thing. There's another thing that we'll trust these brilliant people who've been running the road accident fund to run properly.
Yes.
It's just an absolute joke. All right, let's leave that alone because it's a rabbit hole that we cannot actually afford to go down. And let's wait for the legislation to go through. As Pumi says, public participation. If there's still time for us to do that. But I mean, again, we can't even get people to vote. How are you going to get them to participate in amending a bill?
This is true.
Most people don't even know that the government gazette is an actual thing. All right?
No, we all found out during
we have
COVID.
no civics in this country when it comes to education. We do not teach people what the Constitution is. We don't teach them about the various chapter institutions. We don't teach them what participatory democracy is actually all about. We don't even show them where they can get involved. And the fact is, even if we did, I think most South Africans would go, like they do with everything, and then they complain about the result.
Yes.
You get the government you deserve.
Listen, most people just want things that work and they want their lives to just
But they're not
continue.
prepared to do anything themselves to make sure that those things work. They must just magically work. Right, Pums? Was that an earring that just popped?
That is, yes, that is an earring.
Right, well.
popping.
But you're
State
right,
of the
that is-
nation right there.
So let's look at another area that is potentially just an obstacle course of fuck-ups that is on the horizon, and that is Pravin Gordhan, who's so far mismanaged and destroyed such value in our economy.
For so long.
For so long, and he keeps his job, and he threatens people from the shadows, and he pops his head up somewhere and says something socialistic and then disappears again. He's like a poison dwarf in this fairy tale. Okay, why is this man being allowed to promote the idea of a big state-owned company, one state-owned company to rule them all, when all the little ones that he hasn't been able to manage are disasters, each in their own individual and several ways?
It is a big problem, Gareth. And when I saw this bill coming out, I was actually quite horrified. What he wants to do is get rid of his ministry. So he no longer wants to be the Minister of Public Enterprises.
Can you blame him? Or he just has to constantly run around lying about things.
100%. And he doesn't know what's going on in all of them. The corruption's so deep within all of them that the report that he gets is absolute rubbish. Oh, everything is fine, but speaks to people
Why
at the
do we
entity and
think?
it's destroyed.
But why do we think that the report that he gets is flawed? Why do we not think that he is part of the problem?
Oh, people love Pravin because he's effective, they say. That's what, that's what
I
they
mean,
said.
Pravin Gordhan
They
was.
said that with SARS. Remember? He was very
This is
effective
it.
as commissioner. And ever since then, he's had this clean bill of health from the intelligentsia of this country, clearly who are not intelligent enough to probe any of this stuff.
all of these years, and for me, in the wake of Pravin Gordhan, almost everywhere he's been has been a clusterfuck. And yet, for some reason, he's just like Teflon. Nothing sticks to him.
Yeah.
He's still seen as this, like...
He's a smooth talker. I've met him twice. He's an absolute smooth talker. And he skirts around issues, never answering questions. He's
Consummate politician.
He's a straight up communist, and he'll tell you he is a communist.
He is. He's a member of the Communist Party.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's what he pushes all the time. And in communism, you don't question the leaders. You don't question the bourgeoisie. That's who they are. They're infallible. And he takes on that persona, and people believe him and push him forward. He's been seen as the soft, approachable teddy bear, grandfather.
Velvet glove over an iron fist.
Exactly. And that's his persona, and that's what they...
So he wants to get rid of the ministry and then replace it with what?
With a state-owned entity which owns all the other state-owned entities.
So a holding company.
A
Is
holding
that what it
company.
is?
It's exactly a holding
Jesus, he knows a lot about business for a communist, huh?
company. Yep. He said
Crony,
And what would his
crony
role be?
capitalist should really be the term we use here. What would his role be in this situation, Pumi wants to know?
he wouldn't have a role in the situation. His ministry would fall apart, and he would step down as a minister.
Just in time to retire and take shares in that holding company.
Correct, because the shares will be dealt out, and then the minister determines who the shareholders
Jesus,
are.
you could read these
and-
people like a book, huh?
Yeah, and
Wow.
the minister then determines Parliament determines who the board members are of this entity, and who the shareholders are, and who manages the shares, and who deals out the shares and the share price, and so on.
There's
like a-
You
that
can
list
guarantee
again with
that
the
these
catered
cronies
deployment.
He's like a stupid person Sauron from Lord of the Rings. This is what he is.
This is what killed me when Cyril announced this. He's like, we will decide who the board members are. I'm like, so what's the difference between that and catered deployment?
Correct.
And this happens in the same week where they literally defeated the bill that was supposed to remove catered deployment. So I'm like, okay, so you guys are going to create a company to fix another company that you guys already messed up. I don't know. It's insider trading, and it's so blatant. I don't know how we still put up with it in South Africa. I don't know
Because
how
people don't know, and they're not prepared
don't
to
care
get
to know.
involved. They're not prepared to get involved. Again, I'm sorry if I'm sounding really mean this morning, like Pumi was with the Zimbabweans the other day.
I'll never forget.
Pumi and JJ Tabane were very mean about the Zimbabwe. Well, you weren't. You were just telling them they must take responsibility. I'm saying the same thing. If you're a South African, you're listening to this show now, and if you're not listening to this show now, that's your first mistake, because this is actually where you're going to hear what you need to hear.
Yeah.
Second thing you should do is get involved. Pumi, you've been saying this for the longest time. You cannot complain about things if you're not prepared to get involved in the process. Otherwise, you will get the government you deserve. And if you do nothing, you will get nothing in return, and sometimes less than nothing.
Yeah.
So where are we with this proposal? So at the moment, it is still just a proposal. And what would the steps be?
It's not even a proposal at this moment. It's actually in action.
Okay.
There's a draft act that has been written to govern it, to take care of it, to say how it should run and who should be involved. And that's all out for public comment right now.
Can we send a roll of toilet paper as our comment? Because then I'm in.
Absolutely.
How do people comment? Please help us, Rob, because again, people don't know.
dearsouthafrica.co.za.
And you will funnel that through to Parliament for us.
Every single comment goes through. As soon as you click send, it is.
And we don't have to
corrected in
pay to
format.
play.
You don't have to pay to play at all. And please, people do go. I get a lot of people who say, "What's the point in commenting?" They don't read it anyway. They do. They
have
do
to.
read it. They have to, by law, acknowledge it and consider it. And I make sure that they do. I instruct Parliament to put a autoresponder on the receiving email address so that the person who's participating actually gets proof that it's been sent and delivered through to Parliament. I then do a summary which I present to Parliament, and I present the voice of the people to Parliament. So the voices are heard.
You're like a tribune of the plebs
Yes.
in ancient Rome. No, it's not an insult.
That's right.
It's a very important position.
Rob, and I just want to know,
On
so
my soapbox.
on those, so of the comments on your website, you have got the draft
Yes.
that is proposed. And what kinds of comments do you get, and what kinds of comments are you looking for?
Looking for constructive comments. So not comments that are just bashing the government the whole time. That's not productive. Looking for comments that offer suggestions, alternatives, or say that something is wrong within this bill and this is how it can be amended. Remember, it's not a petition. It's not a protest. It's actually.
So what is the most effective way to comment? How do we get our comments to make a positive difference? Because as you rightly say, we can't just sit there and complain, Pravin's a poison troll. We have to actually say, this is how we envision that this could better be managed and administered and set up.
That's exactly it, Gareth. No more than that.
So
Offer
provide
a solution and provide suggestion.
So fill the vacuum where there's no thinking in the ANC with your own good ideas.
Absolutely correct.
And every person in this country can do this.
Yeah, every person. And you're right, every person can do it, from the topmost businessman to the most intelligent academic to the lowest of the low. That is it. Everybody has a different point of view, and some great suggestions come from absolutely everywhere in society. We're all exposed to different environments. We all have a different opinion of why something will work or why something won't work. And that's what government wants to hear, or rather, should I say, that's what government should hear.
And Rob, I mean, it sounds to me a little bit like a co-created, like a Wikipedia of sort, right? Of South Africa's like solutions, South Africans' solutions to some of the things that are out there. In your experience, what is one of the most effective ways that we can crowdsource these kinds of solutions, besides just me in my room spending hours on your website?
Well, I haven't seen anything else of this nature, to be honest. Government does hold public hearings where they invite people to go and give oral presentations.
Oh my God, those must be awful.
They are terrible.
Because people never know when to shut up.
They are absolutely terrible. And also people don't quite understand the point of it. So it turns into a bitching and moaning session about the government and service delivery and veers off topic so quickly. And they only have a limited time. They can only hear a certain amount of people. If you don't get to talk, well, sorry for you. So the written submissions to me are far more effective because I am the oversight body.
How seriously do they take them?
They take them very seriously. So
have you seen actual evidence that it can inform policy?
Yes, absolutely.
And change law?
Absolutely. A number of times, Gareth, yes. A number of times.
You have an example for us? Just one?
NHI has been one of them. So they've been listening to that. The Eskom tariffs has been another one. And the Eskom restructuring bill has also been a very effective one.
Speaking of which, what do we feel about electricity being opened up? Or is this just another space for corruption to take place?
Well, in my opinion, I think it's just another space for corruption to take place. If you look at who owns the most of the renewable projects in South Africa, it makes absolutely perfect sense. And that is, of course, Patrice Motsepe in his various companies.
This is not conspiracy theory.
Not conspiracy theory at all.
Bakabantu is shaking his head.
Exactly the brother-in-law of the president.
No. Patrice
spent
spent a lot of money in renewable just before the presidency of Cyril Ramaphosa in moving into renewable energy, and it's not a coincidence.
Mm-hmm.
It's really not.
And
It's
Patrice's
not a
Bantubatu is also one of the biggest funders of the ANC right now.
But he also funds
it's
a
obvious
lot of
where
things.
these contracts are going. Yeah. It is.
It's like a nest of vipers.
But I do want to
Unbelievable.
come back, Rob. I do want to come back to the written submissions and how well those do going into making a difference to the policy making. And you were just telling us about the responses that you have seen to some of the stuff that you've put through and how that works. Tell us a little bit more about that.
The responses are good. In fact, when I first started the whole project about 5 or 6 years ago, people just saw it as a petition and didn't really get involved, didn't offer proper constructive comments. But now people have got used to the idea of public participation, and the comments are getting better and better and better and better. And I think presenting them to Parliament has also helped quite a bit, because I give feedback to the participants and they see their comment being displayed or talked about or debated in the parliamentary committees. And I think it's, Gareth, you mentioned educating the public as to what public participation is and the importance thereof. That is extremely important. That's what I've been trying to do for the past 5 or 6 years. I've actually got involved with the Public Education Office now in national Parliament to roll out education programs about public participation and educate people as to how to make a comment, how to make a meaningful comment. Because public participation means providing a meaningful comment on legislation, not just having your say, but providing meaningful. And meaningful means something that can affect the policy or is related to a policy, or that government will consider and go, hey, we didn't think about that. Let's use it.
Mr. Rob, I think I get what you're saying about public participation, but again, what have you done that has translated to actionable? Like, what can you point at? Like Gareth also asked, what can you point at saying, someone said this and then this happened? Yeah. Can you bridge that gap? Yeah. What has what has Dear South Africa said and brought to Parliament that has literally influenced government? So how do we know it's not just another group of people just shoved up in the pile?
And it gets put aside.
It gets put aside. Okay, we heard you. Now move along. So one example of what
Poktatara bill.
Okay.
Which was the anti-terrorism bill. That went out for comment, and it was only given, I think it was 15 days for comment by the committee, which was chaired by late Tina Jumaat-Peterson.
Oh, she was terrific.
She was. She was actually fantastic.
Great. We wish she was still around to keep doing great things in this country.
Everybody has bad things to say about her, but with my engagement with her, she was
a marvelous, amazing, productive human being.
I sent her a WhatsApp and I said, there hasn't been enough public participation.
When did you send this to her? After she was dead?
No.
But we're talking about a success story.
But you got the same response. She may as well have been, right?
Actually not.
She was the one who famously, there's a picture of her with a teaspoon in her mouth. Right?
Yes.
Oh.
Licking the teacup.
Licking the teacup. That's it. Oh, God. Wow. What
So
will we
she
do?
responded.
We're so bereft without her. But what did she respond?
She responded. She said, oh, fantastic. Thank you for contacting me. We will extend it. And she did. She gave another whole month just to accommodate dearsouthafrica.co.za's public participation. So I launched a campaign.
She gave you time and she didn't have any.
Oh, that's wrong. Did she know? But anyway, she gave an extra month and told the committee to accommodate an extra month's worth of public participation. Ran the campaign. It was about 20,000 people who had their say. And then she asked me to present the findings to the committee. And they were stunned. I think everybody said, well, come back with your solution. They invited me back a second time. And then I had to provide my solution to how this Poktatara bill should happen. I went through the comments, pulled out the best ones, put my own thoughts into it, and then presented that to the committee. And we haven't heard anything about the Poktatara bill since. It was just shelved.
Oh, okay. Well, that's a tremendous success.
It was supposed to be sent out by December for the deadlines for that international.
So that's great news. And that proves what I've said before, Pumi. It doesn't take all of those unregistered, disenchanted, disenfranchised voters necessarily to make a difference. You just need a small minority of people who do participate actively. I mean, the EFF make way more noise than anybody else, but they're a tiny proportion of the total number of people in this country. It's like you just make the right noises in the right places and you can have an effect.
And speaking of the right noises, so what is the best way for people beyond just, in front of a computer as well to be able to submit comments? So if somebody's listening today and feels, oh, this is really great, I have the time, I could really participate in this kind of way.
Are you looking for volunteers or something like that?
Yeah.
What other way can people participate?
You can present them straight to Parliament if you want. Parliament's open for anyone to present. They also have what they call PCOs, Parliamentary Constituency Offices, all around the country. I think there's 52 of them around the country. What they are is just a branch of national Parliament. And each member of Parliament is assigned to one of them. So they're supposed to be managed quite well. I say that tongue in cheek, yes. But you're supposed to be able to go in there, find out about any bills that have been published and open for comments, and you can submit your comments through there, either orally or written, and it goes through to Parliament and it must be considered. Then Parliament also do public hearings in certain areas, not on all the bills, but only those that they feel that does require it. If they're seeing a huge response in written responses, then they put it out to public hearings. And that's quite a process. But there again, you offered the opportunity to say anything. If you don't have internet access, Parliament does have a WhatsApp line.
We don't care about people who don't have internet access. Otherwise, I wouldn't be listening to this show. So I'm not interested in them. We don't have to worry. Talk about them on another show.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. Scratch that remark.
No, but the WhatsApp is an important one. They've got a WhatsApp line. Tell me about that.
Pumi loves a WhatsApp. She's on all the groups, right, Bhagavantu?
She loves the WhatsApp line. She loves all the WhatsApp groups. I'm sure she's on that WhatsApp group with all the lists.
And all the cabinet ministers, for sure.
Yeah. And you can actually contact them directly, and they're supposed to respond to you as well. So, but whether they do or not is another story. So I'd use a reliable system that actually tracks the comments and goes through. Really, that's the whole reason I posted it.
So running Dear South Africa for the past 5-6 years now, which is a long time. What do you wish you could have built differently or are hoping to change so that it is a little bit more widely accessible and more people can comment?
Make it more widely known. Although I've got 1.2 million subscribers, it's just
a big constituency. Yeah, it's more than it would take you to get a seat in Parliament.
Yeah,
right?
It would.
You'd probably get 3 for that number.
Yeah. That's my ultimate goal, is to have somebody from Dear South Africa sitting in Parliament, and their sole job is to, if it's 1 or 2 or 3 people, is to, in a non-partisan way, no ideology attached to it whatsoever, sit on committees, have a proper influencing vote in a committee.
Tribune of the people.
Presenting the voice of the people there, submitting private members' bills, changing legislation.
What are the main criticisms of you and Dear South Africa that you hear from politicians, from ordinary people in the public, from the media? What do they dislike about you, and do they have any grounds for those things? I'm steel manning you. I'm steel manning you because I don't think everybody believes in altruism.
Yeah.
Yes.
You obviously want this country to work, which is not necessarily a selfish thing, but it's also not purely altruistic.
No, absolutely.
So it explains itself to me. But let's say there are people who really don't like you and who really don't like what you're doing. What do they usually say? What forms part of their criticism, and how do you refute it?
Okay, so what I get a lot of criticism is sometimes I'll take a hard stance on something. Freedom of speech, I'll take a hard stance on that. And then some leftists will come and say, but you're pushing an agenda of a certain political party, or who's paying you and who's funding you, and so on. And I think that's why I stay clear of the debit order thing. I don't want to be influenced by funders in any way whatsoever. But it's difficult to convince people that you aren't influenced by some sort of ideology. Because I think we all are.
But we are.
We all are, yes. Whether you think you are or not. Nobody is totally non-partisan. You always bounce between one ideology or another. And but I try to stay neutral. I try to stay neutral on everything. That's why I don't present petitions. And I convince people it's not a petition. You are free to say whatever you like. You're free to agree, to disagree, or partly disagree, and provide your reasons why. And that's how it's structured. And then it goes through to Parliament. I've got a great relationship with the parliamentary committees, so I don't get any.
Sounds like you can message Tina Jumat-Peterson. She's dead.
Yes.
She still responds.
And
It's
she
great.
messages back.
Still responds.
Yeah, right. Okay, so look, we've got 15 or so minutes. Pumi's got a couple of things she wants to get to, and I know you've got some agenda points you want to bring up too, Rob. Just things we could discuss about what's going on at the moment. Bakabantu, I mean, you've seen how many fires from across your offices in the CBD?
Well, SARS is burning currently, so
That's great.
so they're burning the money.
Right.
They took the money, now they're burning it. So yeah, that's really great. One of the biggest SARS offices in the country, Marshalltown, Risique. It's been there since forever. That's where I did my e-filing when the first time I got a SARS number. Imagine. Now
You
it's
remember
just
those
on
lovely
fire.
days with the e-file?
So yeah.
And you went there as a young man who
Yeah,
got his
there's
first
no
job.
bad.
You were like, I'm going to participate in this country. I'm going to be an active citizen.
Yeah.
And you got there and they took half your money.
Well, they did that. Yeah. But no. But in terms of like, back to how do you tell the differences, Pumi, between Dear South Africa and the fake Dear South Africa? The fake one has a big contribution sign on the front page. Contribute now. That's how you tell the difference, because I went down the rabbit hole of just trying to compare the sites. The one has this big contribution sign and the other one doesn't. The real one doesn't. Yeah.
All right, thank
five on
you
that
for
one.
clearing that up. All right, Pums?
No, the Dear South Africa concept is one that really, really does appeal. But I'm also wondering, and I know you want to talk about other things, but this is my last question about Dear South Africa.
Now, Rob's going to have to pay for this if we carry on.
Yeah.
What do you do when you receive comments that you disagree with? Does that ever happen?
Yeah, often. Because that's the difficulty.
Does
in
Pravin
remaining
Gordhan
neutral.
send you ideas on Dear South Africa? 'Cause that would be truly counter-revolutionary of him, wouldn't it? I mean,
It
that
would
would
be
be
brilliant if
That
he
would be
did.
brilliant if he was secretly sitting in his office with nothing to do all day, just emailing Rob Hutchinson at Dear South Africa saying, "Hey, how about we make a big state enterprise that can control all the other state enterprises, and I can be in charge, eh?" How about that?
That would be brilliant. It would be absolutely brilliant. Lots of love, your friend and your comrade, Pravin.
No, you'd get a
Comrade
PG,
in
so you
arms.
wouldn't really know it was him.
Yes.
But then he'd be influencing it from both sides. He'd feel very mastermind and Machiavellian.
Brilliant. In fact,
I'm giving you
Gary,
ideas, Pravin. I know you listen. He listens to everything.
He
Big
does.
brother.
I actually do that. So if I see a campaign is going heavily in one direction, say heavily towards the right, I'll send the EFF a message and say,
Hey, look, you
have
better
seen
get
this?
involved.
Have you seen get involved? Have
Yeah.
your say.
And do they?
Try and balance this out. They do actually. Yeah. On the land expropriation thing, there's been several campaigns for that.
Well, they
And
voted with the FF.
They and it
They
ended up
did
being
vote with the FF. That's
47%.
why it didn't go ahead. The EFF. They don't talk a lot about that. And neither did the FF put out a poster saying thank you to the comrades at the EFF for voting with us.
But I'm sure they would not. It's in neither party's interest to show just how close they came to working together and what they achieved together. What are the biggest problems you think we have at the moment? I mean, legislatively, you've brought up NHI. What are the big things that we are on the precipice of in South Africa that we could try to stop, besides the ones we already discussed, road accident
That
fund?
aren't being paid
Pravin's
attention
company.
to, because this is the other
Yeah,
thing,
yeah, yeah,
right? People
absolutely.
only hear, because they're on the government gazette, unless it is of an interest to a particular media house or somebody over there, then you never really hear about it. So what are the bills that are currently that we should be looking at and maybe commenting on?
Well, look, I think there's a whole lot of state reform happening now, and I think this establishment of the central operation is a big red flag in my mind. It's going to be a takeover of everything. To me, centralization of power is straight from the communist playbook, and we need to look out for what's going on there. The NHI is a big worry.
How about election integrity? I mean, how about the IEC? Because we have just assumed since 1994 that the IEC is run in a totally transparent and unbiased and independent way, and it really is not. And we should be keeping an eye on that too, because the easiest way to win an election is to just perpetuate fraud.
Exactly.
And if you have the levers of power at the IEC in your hands, there we go. If you have the IEC in your hands, what do you need to worry about?
Absolutely correct.
Campaigning, you save so much money. You don't have to worry about any of that stuff, right?
Well, the IEC, we kind of trust them, don't we, right? Just like we trust.
Automatically do, which is wrong.
Yeah, but
who appoints them?
But who appoints them? You see, this is where the question always comes up to. Who are the stakeholders?
Like Collins Letswalo.
Yeah. Well, who are the stakeholders? This is this concept that has been lost in South Africa. We are the stakeholders. This is why I go back to the apathy argument. People need to realize that they are the stakeholders in their country. Politicians do not exist except they call themselves politicians. We should be holding them as public servants. That's something that should be happening, which is why I think when I read about this One South Africa movement, when it first started, when it said empower the people that are actually making change in your community. So if there is a grandmother feeding 10 kids, why don't we give that person resources to feed those 10 kids better? Why don't we give that person, why don't we make her ward councillor? Why don't we make her like
because
in
if
that
she becomes a
community.
ward councillor, who's going to feed the kids?
No, but like she's already making change without government funding.
But
so why don't we empower these people?
That is because there are a couple of different things that the state is responsible for, and only one of those things is disbursing funds.
Yeah.
The other one, which is what we're talking about with Rob, is really about legislation. It is really about policy making. And what you need in spaces of policy making is you need thought, you need legal expertise, and you need research, which is one of the things that those kinds of things we are sorely lacking, which is why we have such flawed bills going through. Because when you do empower people like Makaula, lovely as she is not well equipped to make any of those kinds of decisions.
She is not, but she does have the tools to do. Like I grew up with the constitution in my household because my mom got one when the first time she voted. Or
we all got those pocket ones.
We all got those pocket ones. I got in Xhosa and in English because I was English. Every time there's a census, they're supposed to give out a constitution, I think. So why aren't people interacting with our laws? Do people know that there are three branches of government? Okay, three branches that lead this country: the judiciary, the legislation, and the executive. People don't know that. So what is the point of preaching to people? I think it's more we should change the narrative into educating people.
Well, that's why I said we need civics.
We do need civics. We need people can't be
Are you
voting.
even listening to me?
No, I'm saying I do agree with you, Gareth. We can't be just letting people vote for no reason.
Am I talking to the walls?
People should actually know what they're participating in and their vote and what their vote actually means. Because not voting and voting does do something to this country, and it does have an effect. And it's not just going to the polls and ticking your X there. You actually need to participate on a daily basis on what you want to change in this country.
That is it. And people don't understand that. They don't understand that a democracy, a system of governance by the people, means by the people. You have to be involved as people. And it's not just going to the polls once every 5 years. It's not. It's not. As you say, it's getting
Can
involved.
we talk about this quickly, all three of you? What do you think about the fact that economists are saying the rand could hit 25 rand to the dollar in the next little while? Now, we know America is going through its own level of shit, and inflation is becoming a very ugly reality for many Americans. This is because Joe Biden's administration has just printed trillions of dollars that just weren't there before. And when you inflate something, you're creating false value, which is why they're suffering there. But the spillover is that it affects the rest of the world. Unfortunately for us, we're run even more badly than Joe Biden runs the United States. So our rand, when the dollar decreases in value, our rand does not improve in value. And out of the BRICS nations, we're the worst performing. And out of the developing world currencies, we're the worst performing. So at 25 rand to the dollar, there's no currency we're doing well against.
No, there isn't. Let's start exporting right away.
Yeah, what should we export that we don't already
Anything.
What do we have? No, this is a very serious thing. We don't have manufacturing. We don't make things here.
Gareth, I think that's the problem, is that we don't have manufacturing.
We use our raw materials and we send them out sometimes at a cost which is too low, sometimes at a premium.
Yes.
But what do we have to sell the world? Like when you are trying to start a business, if you're trying to make money as an individual in this country, you're a street hustler, you try to figure out, what can I sell? Can I start a little caravan with mohodu? What can I do? Can I make samosas?
Yeah.
What can I do that adds value to the world economy? And what do you think that is in this country? Because I'm out of ideas.
We have cheap labor in this
What, are we
country.
going to send people on slave ships? It didn't work so well before.
No. We bring manufacturing to this country. And we develop the industries that exist in this country.
Do we have a
the-
legislative environment that is
That allows
friendly
that.
to people who want to come and manufacture things here?
Yes.
You already know the answer.
Yeah, we really don't.
No, we have Pravin Gordhan, public enterprises.
Exactly. And that's the problem. We need to
But-
address that legislation problem first. Make it easier for businesses to set up manufacturing here in South Africa. Take advantage of the high unemployment rates. Give people jobs in manufacturing. Upskill people. I know there's an issue with the minimum wage thing right now, which is going up and keeps on increasing. We should get rid of that minimum wage.
Well, we've already got an informal economy that pays no attention to minimum wages.
Exactly. Focus on the skills here, skills development in manufacturing. Invite other big corporates, global corporates into South Africa, set up manufacturing plants here, and get everything out here. Bring it all in-house. Trump used to talk about making America great again by bringing everything in-house. That's exactly what
Rob,
we
are
need
you
to do in
saying
South
we
Africa.
should make South Africa great again?
Yes, make South Africa great
I
again.
would love for someone to make South Africa great again,
No,
and I'd like it to be us.
There's
And
a problem.
there are. We do have some levers, right? So if you think about the IDC and what they're supposed to do and what the legislation allows them to do, but we have people in those environments who don't understand that they are not banks, that the job of the IDC is really to make big decisions around big manufacturing. It's not about giving 20 small businesses a 20 million rand grant or loan. It really is about big industrial kind of investments. And those industrial investments are also about creating and stimulating the economy. But
I don't want anyone to think deployment. I don't want anyone in the comments to think we're ignoring them this morning. Sanele says, if we are stake, and he actually used the stake picture from the emoji list. If we're stakeholders, as Bhagavantu said, we're rump because we're a bunch of asses for these loudmouth politicians at Bhagavantu the intern. So there we go, Bhagavantu. What do you think of that? Any comments?
No, we are a bunch of asses. Like I've always said, the way we run government and the way South Africa is run is wrong. Government is the highest employer in South Africa. I'm on about this every single day with my friends. We should not be employing people. Government should be creating an environment, a sustainable environment for where economy thrives. Economy will thrive anyway. The granny who sells muhodu will always sell muhodu if she needs money. So what you need to make sure is you need to get out of the way so that economy can thrive. And then once that economy starts to kick up, then you can start regulating it. Then you
or
can
just
start
shut up and tax it.
and tax it,
And then you make more money and you can do what you want with that.
Which was the big thing about legalization in America, where they realized, oh, we already have a weed problem. Why don't we just tax the weed and then get just a little bit more money?
I mean, someone should sit down with the ANC, NEC and say to them, listen, if you just change some of your laws, there will be more to steal.
Yeah, they just need to realize that. So what they almost did when Zuma almost sold out half of Durban or half of KZN to the Chinese government, where the Chinese government was not going to upskill the people. The Chinese government was going to build a factory, Chinese owned, Chinese money, Chinese ran, and nothing. So that's not what we need in South Africa. But they import the labor, they import the people, they take out the minerals, and then they take them out to China, and then they sell them back to South Africans at a premium.
That's what we need to stop.
So government needs to start, like, we have these legislations, we have all these things, but these people are not using our laws correctly. So this is why the stakeholders, Sanele, need to know the laws. need to know what they want, need to know who the people where they should want for.
We better do that before the only stakeholder
We need to
left
know
is
who
Pravin.
Collins is.
Before Pravin is the only stakeholder left in the game, we better all change this narrative. All right, well, we're at 8 o'clock. I know.
Really?
I know. Anything you want to add? Parting shots? Go ahead. Rob, you go first. You're our guest.
Okay. Well, thanks for having me on. First of all, it was always good. Let's make a habit of it.
Don't waste your time, Rob. Go on. What do you want to bring up?
Rob, this is your ad break. Tell them what your website is.
Okay. Get involved, as you've been saying throughout here. It is about educating the public and getting the public involved in public participation, getting them involved in their democracy.
DRSA.co.za.
DRSA.co.za. It gives you that opportunity to.
All right, I'm going to say this. If you are too lazy and too useless and shiftless and pathetic to get up and to go and vote in the elections, I will not forgive you, but you can make up for that in some way by participating in the way laws are written. Right?
And it does make a difference.
Thank you. So go and do that. Then you'll be, next time I confront you and you say, oh, well, I didn't feel like voting, I'll say, well, did you at least participate in some of the making and changing of laws? And if you say, no, not really, then I may just bury you under rocks like in the Old Testament.
Is it people are out here doing things? Thank you for starting
Yeah.
DRSA.
Yes, absolutely. The more the merrier.
pleasure.
And we need more stuff like that. Pumi, any parting shot?
That
was
that's
it.
my parting shot.
Bhagavantu, you never get to say anything, so I mean, you've only got 3 days on the show.
Well. My parting shot, Gareth, is electoral reform. I'm on about it all the time. We need to look at how this country is run. Electoral reform, how we running it is not working. 30 years, it's not working.
What do you mean? Constituency-based system as opposed to party list?
Yes, let's move from a party system. Let's move to a constituency. Individual candidates holding people accountable. Feet to the fire. That's your catchphrase.
Pumi? What do you think of that? Because you were like, do you think he's right or you think he's wrong?
We have one of the best constitutions. We really do have an election process that allows the largest number of voices to have representation. That's what proportional representation is about. I think you just want to, because we're not using it properly, you think that we need to go back to an old way of doing things. And I disagree. We have a supercar available to us, and you just want to make it a Ford Mustang.
But who's going to drive that supercar?
No one's driving the supercar. No one is equipped to drive a supercar.
Pravin.
But everyone can drive a Mustang.
Pravin, and he can't reach the fucking pedal. Anyway, let's leave it at that. That's my parting shot. Pravin can't reach the pedals. Okay, everybody have a happy day. We will see you tomorrow at 6 a.m. bright and early, and then it's a long weekend. How nice is that? Thank you very much, Pumi. Thank you, Rob. Thank you, Bhagavantu. And most especially, thank you to you for listening. We'll see you tomorrow. Cheers. Bye.